most important thing. Like, I'm not sure. I'll just wait for you to ask a question, but like, I want them wherever they're at. Like, I have no inclination to where they're at right now. Like, I've exhausted like every friend that I know of, and every friend that I have has called friends that Shanann has that maybe I didn't know about, and it's just like it's vanished. Like, she's not, like, when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like, she wasn't here. Kids weren't here. I have no idea like where they went, and it's just earth-shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from.
In this video, a father pleads for his missing family's return. His name is Chris Watts, and within days, America would discover that the man making this emotional plea was hiding something unthinkable. No one could have predicted that this seemingly perfect family would become the center of countless true crime documentaries, YouTube deep dives, and headlines across the globe. This photo was shared just days before Shanann Watts and her 2 little girls disappeared. What makes it truly chilling is the heartbreaking reality that soon after it was taken, their lives would be tragically cut short by the very person who was meant to protect them, their father. This isn't just another tragic crime story. This case sent shockwaves through America, forcing millions to question how a devoted husband and father could transform into a cold-blooded killer overnight. But as we peel back the layers, you'll see that beneath the surface, things were never as perfect as they seemed. So, who was Chris Watts before the world knew his name? And what could possibly drive him to destroy the very people who trusted him the most? Well, before we dive into the darkness that would eventually consume this family, let's start by getting to know them first. The story of Chris and Shanann Watts began like many modern love stories. Shanann Razuchek, born on January 30th, 1984 in New Jersey, had already weathered her share of storms by the time she met Chris. Growing up in North Carolina, she had battled lupus since her teenage years, but she never let it define her. Instead, she channeled her energy into building a successful career in sales and eventually became a rising star in the health and wellness industry. Chris Watts's early life was notably different. Born on May 16, 1985 in Oklahoma, he grew up in North Carolina in what appeared to be a perfectly normal household. Quiet and reserved, Chris was the kind of person who preferred to blend into the background. He worked as an automotive mechanic before transitioning to the oil industry, where his technical skills and attention to detail served him well. Their paths crossed in 2010 when they connected on Facebook. For Shanann, who had recently divorced and was ready for a fresh start, Chris seemed like everything she had been looking for. He was stable, hardworking, and appeared utterly devoted to her. Within months of meeting in person, their relationship blossomed into something serious. The couple married on November 3, 2012, in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. Soon after, they moved to Colorado for better opportunities, settling into a beautiful 5-bedroom home in Frederick, a quiet suburb north of Denver. Chris secured a good job as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, while Shanann threw herself into building her business as a promoter for a health and wellness company called Thrive. Their family grew quickly. In 2013, they welcomed their first daughter, Bella Marie. Just 15 months later, in July 2015, Celeste Catherine, whom they lovingly called Cece, joined the family. From the outside, they appeared to be living the American dream.
Say hi, Cece. Say hi, Bells.
Hi, Bill.
No, you gotta say hi.
Hi.
When Chris and I got married, we moved out here after visiting, fell in love with the area. It's gorgeous in Colorado. I'm making some Italian cookies today, but this guy right here, he's gonna do all the dishes.
That's me.
As you can see, their social media posts painted a picture of a happy, successful family. Vacations, celebrations, and countless moments of joy captured and shared with the world. Shanann, in particular, was prolific on social media, regularly posting updates about their life, her business ventures, and her daughter's milestones. She would often praise Chris, calling him the best dad in the world and her rock. Her posts showed a family that seemed to have it all: beautiful children, a loving marriage, financial success, and a bright future ahead. By the summer of 2018, things appeared to be getting even better. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child, a boy they planned to name Nico. She had just returned from a successful business trip to Arizona, and the family had recently enjoyed a 6-week visit with Chris's parents in North Carolina. But beneath this perfectly curated surface, something sinister was brewing. And on August 13th, 2018, everything would change forever. In the early morning hours of that summer day, Shanann returned home from a business trip, exhausted but happy to be back with her family. She was dropped off at her house at 1:48 a.m. by her friend and colleague, Nicole Atkinson. Little did Nicole know that this would be the last time she would see her friend alive. What happened in the hours that followed would expose the dark truth behind the picture-perfect facade and reveal how one man's secrets and lies would lead to an unthinkable tragedy that would capture the nation's attention and leave everyone asking, how could someone do this to their own family? By the way, I post true crime and new cases here every week, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. The morning of August 13th started like any other in the quiet suburb of Frederick, Colorado. But by 9 a.m., alarm bells were already ringing for Nicole Atkinson. She had tried calling and texting Shanann multiple times, but there was no response, something completely out of character for her friend who was usually quick to reply. Shanann had a doctor's appointment scheduled for that morning to check on her pregnancy. But when Nicole called the doctor's office, they confirmed what she feared. Shanann hadn't shown up. What made this even more concerning was that Shanann had been experiencing one of the most challenging periods of her life. Just weeks earlier, she had confided in friends about growing tensions in her marriage. During their recent 6-week trip to North Carolina, Chris had been acting distant, refusing to touch or kiss her. When she tried to plan a romantic weekend to work on their relationship, he seemed cold and uninterested. The signs had been there, subtle at first, but growing more obvious as summer progressed. Chris, who had always been attentive and loving, began changing his appearance, working out obsessively, and buying new clothes. He started going out more, claiming he was meeting work friends, and became protective of his phone. But perhaps most telling was his reaction when Shanann revealed she was pregnant with their third child. Instead of joy, his response was oddly muted, almost cold. Shanann had poured her heart out in text messages to her friends, sharing her fears and confusion about Chris's behavior. "He hasn't touched me all week, kissed me, talked to me except for when I'm trying to figure out what is wrong," she wrote to one friend. "We've never had a problem in our relationship like this. No joke, never. This is total left field." That's why when Nicole couldn't reach Shanann that morning, she knew something was terribly wrong. She drove to the Watts home, bringing her son Nicholas with her. When they arrived, they found Shanann's car still parked in the garage. Her shoes, which she always left by the door, were exactly where they should be. Her phone, which was practically an extension of her hand given her work in social media marketing, was nowhere to be found. Nicole tried ringing the doorbell and knocking, but the house remained silent. She called Chris, who seemed surprisingly unconcerned, saying Shanann was probably just busy with the girls. But Nicole knew better. She could see Shanann's essential medication still in her car, medication she never went anywhere without. The security system was also armed, meaning no one had left through the front door since Shanann's return. Growing increasingly worried, Nicole called the Frederick Police Department. Officer Scott Coonrod arrived at the house around 1:45 p.m. Chris, who had been contacted at work, arrived home shortly after. What happened next would be captured by the officer's body camera, preserving a chilling moment that would later be scrutinized by millions.
I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage, her shoes she wears every single day are right in the front door.
As you can see, Chris arrived and entered the garage door code. He appeared calm, too calm for someone whose pregnant wife and young daughters were missing. he led the officer through the house, which showed no signs of struggle or forced entry. Everything was in its place. The girls' beds were made, their toys were organized, and there was no indication of anyone leaving in a hurry. But there were subtle details that spoke volumes. Shanann's wedding ring was sitting on the bedside table, something she never took off. Her purse and keys were still in the house, and most disturbing of all, her phone was found between the couch cushions, powered off, something completely out of character for the social media savvy businesswoman. As Officer Coonrod questioned Chris about his family's whereabouts, his responses were vague and oddly detached. He suggested that maybe Shanann had taken the girls to a friend's house, but couldn't explain why she would leave without her car, phone, or medication. When asked about any problems in their marriage, Chris downplayed the tensions that Shanann had confided to her friends about just days earlier. That evening, as news of the disappearance spread, friends and neighbors gathered at the Watts home. Among them was Nathan Trinastic, whose security camera had a clear view of the Watts driveway. What that camera captured in the early morning hours would later become crucial evidence. Around 5:15 a.m., it recorded Chris backing his work truck up to the garage, something he had never done before, and loading something into the back. As the community rallied to help find the missing mother and daughters, Chris's behavior continued to raise eyebrows. While others were frantically organizing search parties and putting up missing person posters, he remained eerily calm. The next day, on August 14th, he agreed to do a series of TV interviews that would come back to haunt him. Standing on his front porch, Chris looked into the cameras and made a plea that sent chills down viewers' spines. "I want everybody back. I want everybody back here and everybody safe." Take a look and you can clearly see something was off about his demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of going through your mind right now too?
That's why I want everybody back. That's why I need everybody back here and everybody safe.
While he spoke about his missing family, his body language told a different story. He crossed his arms defensively, showed no genuine emotion, and at times even smiled inappropriately. Behavioral experts would later point out how he spoke about his family in the past tense, a common tell among those who know their loved ones are no longer alive. Meanwhile, investigators were piecing together troubling evidence. They discovered that despite the family's picture-perfect social media presence, the Watts were drowning in debt. They had previously filed for bankruptcy in 2015, and new financial strains were mounting. There was also the matter of Chris's recent behavior changes, not just his physical transformation, but his sudden interest in tracking his macronutrients and his newfound need for privacy with his phone. But the most damning discovery was yet to come. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered something that would blow the case wide open. Chris Watts was having an affair with a co-worker named Nicole Kessinger. The relationship had begun in June, just 2 months before the disappearance, and had quickly intensified. While Shanann was away in North Carolina with the girls, Chris and Nicole's relationship had become serious. He told her he was in the process of separating from his wife, never mentioning that Shanann was pregnant with their third child. Text messages revealed that in the days leading up to the disappearance, Chris had been making plans for a future with Nicole. He was looking at apartment listings and researching jewelry. All this while, Shanann was desperately trying to save their marriage, even buying relationship self-help books and planning a romantic weekend away. The investigation took a dramatic turn when police brought Chris in for questioning on August 15th. For hours, he maintained his story that Shanann had simply taken the girls and left. But as investigators pressed him with mounting evidence, including the security camera footage and cell phone data that contradicted his timeline, his story began to crumble. Then, in a twist that stunned investigators, Chris asked to speak with his father, Ronnie Watts, who had flown in from North Carolina. What happened next would be captured on the interrogation room camera, preserving one of the most chilling confessions in recent criminal history. After speaking with his father, Chris emerged with a new story, one that was both a confession and a desperate attempt to shift blame. He claimed that when he woke up that morning, he and Shanann had an emotional conversation about their relationship. According to him, when he told her about his affair, she became distraught. He then made the unconscionable claim that Shanann had harmed their daughters and that he, in a fit of rage, had taken her life. But investigators weren't buying it. The evidence simply didn't match his story. Cell phone records, surveillance footage, and other evidence painted a very different picture of what happened in those early morning hours of August 13th. As pressure mounted, Chris finally agreed to lead investigators to his family. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, he revealed the devastating truth about where they could find Shanann and the girls. The location he directed them to was the Anadarko oil field where he worked, about 45 minutes from their home. There, at the oil site known as Survey 319, investigators made a heartbreaking discovery. Shanann had been laid to rest in a shallow grave. In an even more tragic turn, the girls had been placed in separate oil tanks. Chris had used his knowledge as an oil field operator to hide his horrible crimes, choosing locations he knew would be difficult to access. The details that emerged about that morning were devastating. Chris had waited for Shanann to return from her business trip, knowing exactly what he planned to do. After she came home and went to bed, he put his sinister plan into motion. The medical examiner would later confirm that Shanann and her unborn son, whom they had planned to name Nico, had lost their lives in their own bedroom. What made this crime even more horrific was that Bella and Celeste had been alive during the 45-minute drive to the oil field. Bella, who was just 4 years old, had even pleaded with her father, asking him to spare her life. But Chris, in an act of unimaginable cruelty, had proceeded with his plan, ultimately taking the lives of both his daughters. The investigation revealed that Chris had been planning this for some time. In the days leading up to the murders, he had been texting his girlfriend about their future together. As news of the discovery spread, the community that had been hoping and praying for the safe return of the Watts family was devastated. Thousands gathered for candlelight vigils, leaving teddy bears, flowers, and heartfelt messages outside the Watts home. The case that had captured national attention had come to the worst possible conclusion. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts appeared in court for his arraignment. The courtroom was packed with family members, media, and members of the community who had been following the case. In a move that surprised many, Chris decided to accept a plea deal. By pleading guilty to 9 charges, including first-degree murder, Chris would avoid the death penalty. The charges included 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree murder of a child under the age of 12, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. The sentencing hearing on November 19th was emotionally charged. Shanann's father, Frank Razuchek, delivered a powerful victim impact statement that brought many in the courtroom to tears. Life will never be the same without Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. They had all their lives to live. They were taken by a heartless one, taken by an evil monster. The most gut-wrenching moment came when Shanann's mother, Sandra Razuchek, addressed the court. Through tears, she spoke directly to Chris. "I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. The heartless monster you became won't take away the love they had for you. They loved you. You disgust me." Even Chris's own parents struggled to comprehend what their son had done. His mother, Cindy Watts, spoke to the media outside the courthouse. "We still don't have all the answers, and I don't know if we ever will. Our son is not the monster he has been portrayed as in the media. I love my son, but I am devastated by what has happened." Judge Marcelo Kopkow didn't hold back when delivering the sentence. He described the case as the most inhumane and vicious crime I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. He then handed down the maximum sentence possible, 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders, plus additional years for the other charges. But the story didn't end with the sentencing. In February 2019, Chris agreed to a 5-hour prison interview with investigators where he finally revealed the full truth about what happened that morning. His new confession contradicted his earlier claim about Shanann harming the children. He admitted that he had planned the murders, wanting to start a new life with his girlfriend. The details he provided about his daughter's final moments were heartbreaking. 4-year-old Bella had walked into the bedroom after he had taken Shanann's life, asking, "What's wrong with Mommy?" He then loaded his wife's body and his living daughters into his work truck, driving them to the oil field where he would commit his final horrific acts. The revelation of these details devastated both families all over again. Shanann's brother, Frankie Razuchek, took to social media to express his anguish. "I've never been so angry, sad, and confused in my life. My sister and nieces were the light of the world. The pain never goes away." The case had a profound impact on the community of Frederick, Colorado. The Watts house, once a symbol of suburban success, became a haunting reminder of the tragedy. Neighbors reported that people would drive by at all hours, some leaving flowers and stuffed animals, others simply trying to make sense of how such horror could unfold in their quiet community. The Watts family case sparked intense public interest, partly because of how it challenged our perceptions of domestic violence and family dynamics. Here was a family that appeared perfect on social media: regular vacation photos, loving messages, and constant updates about their seemingly idyllic life. The contrast between these carefully curated posts and the dark reality beneath the surface led to important discussions about how social media can mask serious problems within families. Nicole Kessinger, Chris's girlfriend, also became entangled in the aftermath of the case. Although investigators cleared her of any involvement in the crimes, she was forced to change her identity and relocate due to intense public scrutiny and harassment. In her only interview with police, she expressed horror at Chris's actions and insisted she had no idea he was still married, let alone that Shanann was pregnant. The case has since become the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and television specials. Netflix's documentary, American Murder: The Family Next Door, brought renewed attention to the case in 2020, using Shanann's own social media videos and text messages to tell the story. The documentary highlighted how Shanann's extensive social media presence left behind a digital footprint that would help investigators piece together the family's final days. Perhaps most disturbing was how Chris's behavior in the days following the murders revealed signs that experts now say could help identify similar cases. His inappropriate emotional responses during interviews, his quick attempt to sell the family home, and his inconsistent stories all pointed to his guilt. These warning signs have since become teaching tools for law enforcement and domestic violence prevention groups. The case also led to changes in how law enforcement handles missing persons cases involving young children. The swift action of Nicole Atkinson in alerting police and the quick response of the Frederick Police Department have been praised as examples of best practices in such situations. The fact that evidence was preserved due to rapid police involvement has become a model for other departments. Chris Watts now serves as multiple life sentences at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin. He was transferred there from Colorado for security reasons. According to prison sources, he keeps photos of his family in his cell and claims to read the Bible daily, saying he's found religion behind bars. He receives regular letters from women who write to him in prison, a phenomenon that psychologists say is not uncommon with high-profile killers. Meanwhile, Shanann's family has worked to keep her memory alive while advocating for domestic violence awareness. They established a foundation in honor of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, which works to help women and children escaping dangerous domestic situations. Frank and Sandra Razuchek have become vocal advocates for victims' rights and have spoken at numerous domestic violence awareness events. Every year, on August 13th, the community of Frederick, Colorado, holds a remembrance ceremony for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico. The memorial garden created in their honor serves as both a tribute to their lives and a reminder of the importance of recognizing and addressing domestic violence before it escalates to tragedy. In a poignant gesture, Shanann's mother now manages her daughter's social media accounts, transforming them from a chronicle of family life into a memorial that raises awareness about domestic violence. The same platforms that once showcased the family's seemingly perfect life now serve as a warning about the dangers that can lurk behind carefully curated images. Letters and messages continue to pour in from people around the world who have been touched by this case. Many share their own stories of recognizing warning signs in their relationships after learning about the Watts family tragedy. Others express how the case has made them more aware of the importance of checking on friends and family members who might be struggling. The Razuchek family has channeled their grief into action, working with legislators to strengthen laws protecting pregnant women and children from domestic violence. Their advocacy has led to discussions about new legislation that would increase penalties for crimes against pregnant women and provide more resources for domestic violence prevention. Frank Razuchek, Shanann's father, perhaps said it best in a recent interview. "We lost so much in a single morning, a daughter, grandchildren, and a future we'll never get to see. But if sharing our story helps even one person recognize the warning signs and get help, then Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico didn't die in vain." As we conclude this tragic story, it's worth remembering that behind the headlines, social media posts, and sensational coverage were real people. A mother who loved her children fiercely, two little girls who had their whole lives ahead of them, and an unborn baby boy who never got the chance to take his first breath. Their story serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence doesn't always show itself in obvious ways. Sometimes it hides behind smiling family photos and perfectly worded social media posts. It reminds us to look deeper, to check on our loved ones, and to take action when something doesn't feel right. Chris Watts will spend the rest of his life in prison, but the impact of his crimes continues to ripple through society. Every time someone recognizes a warning sign because of this case, every time a friend decides to make that welfare check, every time someone finds the courage to leave a dangerous situation, that's part of the legacy of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico Watts. Their story, as heartbreaking as it is, has become a catalyst for change, a wake-up call about the realities of domestic violence, and a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers. They're the ones closest to home. What do you think about this case? Could anything have been done to prevent this tragedy? What warning signs do you think friends and family should look out for? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video informative and want to help bring awareness to more cases like this, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories and potentially save lives through awareness. Thank you for watching, and remember, if something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts and don't be afraid to reach out for help. Sometimes, as Nicole Atkinson showed us, one phone call can make all the difference.